That's when, you know, I was in a bad place. That's when, you know, I wanted to commit suicide. You don't get away with it scot-free. You have to pay for what you've sown.
I was on methadone, I was on heroin, crack cocaine.
He's not even the same person, even to talk to, not the same.
Some of us are easily shaped by our environment and often find ourselves in the shadows of darkness. Getting out can be one of the hardest things to do. Sometimes we just can't do it in our own strength.
What's this, boy? Is this a little present what you bought Mum for Christmas? Is this a little present? Oh. Little present you bought Mum for Christmas. What's it say? It says, I love you, Mum.
I got derailed at a young age. I was in schools, naughty schools. Special schools. I had two teachers. I had the original teacher in the class, and I had a teacher who used to sit by my side to try to control me. So I was just wild, and then that led me from, you know, in the school itself, it led me to have, you know, big massive explosions with one of the headmasters. I remember one time being in his office and it kicked off. I started to attack him, and yeah, it was crazy. I got suspended for, you know, a period of time. You know, I used to bunk off of school, used to go out smoking, buying fags and, you know, fighting. You know, it all started off when I was really young, and I was active in doing car thefts, you know, having police chases. I was doing burglaries, you know, taking marijuana. Tremendous amount of marijuana when I look back at it now. And I had my first prison sentence at the age of 15. I spent 2 months in Young Offenders Institute in Felton, and I come away from that 2-month sentence, and where I was only young, you know what it's like when you're young and you think you're hard, you think you're a gangster, just done a prison sentence. People said that it would slow me down, but it never, it just made me worse. I ended up being in the children's zone. In Strood, Upner. I was there 14 to the age of 16, and you know, and I was a menace.
We visited John's children's home so John could tell me a bit more about his experiences there.
I was here from the age of 14 to the age of 16. It was a bit crazy for me at that time. I was very angry, violent, so frustrated, so mad I was. And because if you look up there, the top window, I've climbed out that top window many a time to get into another room, because there's like a social services team, about 30 strong, they rotate it, and you always got 2 people staying of a night time. You know, very tight control. I used to go down to the village stealing cars, and the social worker said to me, what can we do for you to stop going out and stealing cars? And I said, well, buy me one. So I remember they brought me a Sierra one time, and the garden's massive, so I used to drive it in the garden. So they used to, you know, some sort of control for me, stop me from going out there driving cars and causing craziness. I remember one time as well that I stole the safe and one of the social services car, and I took it to Higham train station. I chucked the safe off the bridge, it hit the platform, broke open, all the money was on the platform, so I run down there to get it, but the police turned up, and I remember they chased me through a train tunnel, pure dark, and I was just running through. I could see behind me all flashing lights coming in trying to get me. I ended up getting away on that scene, but they knew it was me, so they arrested me later. And this was also the place where I got my first prison sentence at the age of 15. I went to Feltham Young Offenders in London, and I got 2 months for stealing a car and having 1 hour police chase.
I work at Old Vicarage with Kids in Care. I'm one of the staff here, residential support worker. And staff here just told me, obviously you guys were shooting out here, and they just told me John is a ex-care leaver from this home, and he's been to prison as well. So yeah, I find it really motivating just as a person. Like, I'm even getting goosebumps right now thinking about it, what he's been through, being a care leaver, going into prison and recovering and coming out and beating the drug addiction and motivating others. So yeah, it's great. And I was an ex-prison officer. I worked in category A prison, category B prison, male, and I saw a lot of young people from foster care or maybe children's care home coming into prison. Yeah, so there's a big link with the kids in care and obviously growing up and going into prison. Yeah, I didn't understand that link, obviously, till I left the prison and started working at children's care home. That's when I understood the link, that they haven't got proper guidance, they haven't got that connection, relationships, positive relationships or positive mentoring. That's why they get misguided and they end up where, obviously, where John ended. So yeah, I just found it motivating how he's turning his life around, and you know, he's doing great.
So I was living in a children's home for a period of time. When I come out, I was going to Sittingbourne, that's where I'm from, and I was doing, you know, loads more crime, loads more fighting, active, you know, in violence immensely. And it come about 15 to 16 years of age that I got addicted to heroin. And that's where it really went wrong for me. You know, I was doing robberies. Well, I was really young at that time. I wasn't really sending me to prison at that point. But then at the age of 17, I started getting addicted to crack cocaine. I become a master how to rob money to support my habit. You know, I was dismantled in a massive way. So confused. You know, my family was reaching out to me many occasions, trying to help me, and I just turned my back on them. Friends broke relationships. Friends didn't want to know me because I come nasty. I was a bad batch, and it wasn't fair for these people. It wasn't fair for these individuals who was encountering me and experiencing somebody what wasn't me. It was a cover-up, it was the heroin. And what the heroin does to you, the heroin fractures your mindset, darkens your soul. It makes your soul so dark, so gripped with fear, and it can destroy a person. My GPS system was polluted, and you know, I didn't know what day of the week it was. In and out of prison, been into a prison most of my life, over a decade, and you know, and I was damaged goods.
John spent 10 years of his life in over 15 prisons across the UK. He was constantly moved around due to his violent behaviour.
Right, so this is Elmley Prison, and this is the first adult prison that I come to, and that was at the age of 20, which is that's not allowed by law. Well, at least back then when I was doing my prison sentence, but I was in Dover prison and I was getting into a lot of fights, robbing a lot of people inside the prison system. And when you do that, they try to control you, and what the prison officers and the system do, that they move you around. You know, and it's inside the prison is intoxicated through, you know, with drugs, and the drug scene is immense. You know, and I was addicted badly inside, and you know, I was going around robbing people. If I found out people had drugs, I used to go in the cell, shut the door, and I used to go in there and I used to confiscate that off of them. So that's why I got moved all around the country to different prisons, you know, and there was a fluctuation of my behaviour, and it was horrible, and it wasn't nice to be around. And I can imagine the people who did experience me, it wasn't nice, you know. And so I'll say sorry to anyone that I hurt, you know, in my old life. That's no longer me no more. I've turned, you know, I've done a complete turnaround.
And I burnt bridges. People didn't want to know me. The system gave up on me. In the end, I become lonely. In the end, I become, you know, such in a bad place. I had suicidal thoughts. I had, you know, I just wanted to just end my life.
Even though John wanted to take his own life, there was others who shared the same sentiment and made their intentions public.
Where I'm just going to take you to a pub, and outside this pub is where I got my throat cut at the age of 16. So we're going to go there, and I'll brief you up a little bit more. I've done a lot of activity crime-wise down here. I had a lot of police in pursuit of me, chasing me for warrants, outstanding warrants, because, you know, I've broken into offices, stolen safes, you know, really been a terror. And so I've had a lot of police chases, and I've climbed a lot of roofs down here to get away from them, and done a lot of dangerous stuff. Okay, this is Sittingbourne High Street, and just over there is Bunter's Pub. So at the age of 16, outside the pub, I got my throat cut by 3 people, and there was an interaction. There was an argument what took place with us, and out of the blue, one of them cut me, stabbed me in the neck. And at that time, I didn't really think that he put a blade to my neck. So I'll see a loose brick wall outside the back of the pub. So I'll run to the wall, and I was trying to get a brick because there was 3 of them. Disadvantage, so I was going to use a weapon. And then at that time, I felt air going into my throat. So I put my fingers to my throat. My fingers fell in my throat. My throat was wide open where they cut me.
John was rushed to hospital, and thankfully his main arteries were missed. This incident should have calmed him down, but instead he became more violent. It wasn't until much later that his lifestyle began to take its toll.
Destroyed me. That made me lonely, that made me confused. You know, it was a culture that I was in which was a dark place, and whether you like it or not, it ruins a person who lives a lifestyle like that. At the beginning it seems good, you know, it's, you know, trying to get a wreck, but it destroys the person. And I later on in my life started to experience that and find out actually I have been damaged goods. At the age of 31, I was I was on remand for 6 months, and for robbery, which I didn't do. There was a transaction that took place, but the person lied, and so I found my faith being activated there. I started praying for 5 days in the prison cell, saying, God, if you're real, please get me off this. So when I went up for my, I had a 5-day trial, I went up for my verdict, and the CPS and the barrister said I was going to get guilty, I'm going to get 8 years. But God intervened, and all 12 jury found me not guilty. And I walked out of that place knowing that that was a touch of God. So I went to Merston, lived back in Merston, which is in Sittingbourne, and I had a fight with some traveller boy years ago. He come back with revengeance, and that's when I had my second murder attempt on my life. Where he come
we're just about to come up to a house, and outside this house, this is where I got my throat cut the second time. I was on methadone, I was on heroin, crack cocaine, I was on Rivotril, pre-gabs. I was pretty much on everything. I was highly consumed by, you know, this poison, I like to call it. And I come back to Sittingbourne, you know, and I was a mess. I was destroyed. This friend of mine, who me and him had a falling out. We had an altercation, and we had a fight, and I obviously got the better of him. But he didn't want to swallow that, so he said, I'm going to come back for you. And it was like 5 years later that obviously when I come out of Mason Crown Court and I got that not guilty, that I was in that property on the end, that house, and he found himself in there with me at the same time, so we had another straightener. And but then he ran out of the house in mid-flow of having that toe-to-toe, and went and got a blade, and then come back, and then he chopped me down my neck. So that was the second time that somebody tried taking away my life. Yeah, so this is the scar. This one at the front is the one at the age of 16 outside Bunters when I got my throat cut. It's been crazy, and experienced you know, a lot of pain living a lifestyle like that, and you don't realise what it's doing to you. It's actually breaking you down. Yeah. Right, watch this, Darren, look. I'm just doing a bit of filming, documentary about my life, yeah, right? Yeah. And I'll put you on loudspeaker, and I've got my pal doing it now, right? Yeah. So, go on. Just quickly, this is my brother who's in prison, and obviously I'm looking after him, sending him out a bit of money while he's doing the rest of his prison sentence. So what was my life like? What sort of activities have you done with me on the drug scene in the prison and all that, Daz?
A lot, doing loads of drugs, doing crime together. Yeah, just doing mischief, really. You know what I mean? Getting in a lot of trouble. Stupid things, all over drugs. All over drugs, isn't it? What about the prison that we've done together? We've done we've done too much prison together. I wish I never got back into the prison scene. But you've done, trust me, you've done a lot. You know what I mean? You've changed your life. Yeah, it's good. But that's what I'm saying. So when you get out, it's time for you to change your life as well, bro. You know what I mean? Listen, mate, I'm done. I can't do no more of this. You know, I can't. Yeah. I can't do no more of it. It's killing me. Yeah. This sentence killed me off, I'm telling you. Yeah, alright, listen, I love you, alright?
I was on every drug you can think of. I was skinny, I was broken, I was messed. My mind was messed up. And I was complete ruin. I was complete frustration. And I was in a crazy time in my life. So I went to Chatham, didn't know no one, was homeless, broken all my relationships. The system didn't want to know me because I rebelled against everything. And I was just on my own at this time, lonely. But I was calling out to God. That was one thing that I will remember. I was calling out to God. There was loads of times in my life where I was calling out to God. I said, God, if you're real, please interject and show me your love and your presence. And I remember I went to Karen Ann's in a homeless centre, and they feed 250 meals a day. There's like drug people, alcohol professional people. There's all these sorts of people. It's an amazing place which help people who's living a life of despair, living a life of no hope. And this place is a beacon of hope, a lighthouse, you know, that people can come in and find refuge. And so I went there, and I was living homeless behind caring hands. And so I was at 10 blankets. It was snowing one time. I was in a bad way. I wanted to take my life. And so I went there, and this is when I encountered the living God, because I recognised that there's a love, divine power, divine majesty flowing through these people who are running caring hands, because they were believers of Jesus Christ. I recognised it's not just a food place, and that's what I caught hold of, and I knew that that wasn't human love, that was something else. So that was what I was captivated to.
Okay.
Don't worry.
Don't worry, don't worry.
How many sugars, mate? Two sugars, yeah? There you go, mate. Simon is somebody who embraced me, who experienced me. You know, he's had his own background as well, but we encouraged each other and see each other through our tough, awkward time that we was experiencing.
Yeah, so when I first knew of John, he was in and out of prison. When he wasn't in prison, he was homeless on the streets. He was a heroin addict, hyper violent. He used to come in the centre and everyone would just get out of his way. You wouldn't even look at him because he'd have a go at you. They literally parted the ways, and he just walked in, got his tea, coffee, breakfast, sat down, no one else around him. Yeah, no one went anywhere near him. Yeah, there was one incident where we were sitting in the centre, and John was in the centre, and one of his guys walked in, and he obviously owed him money for drugs or something to do with drugs. So they started an argument, but John was also very respectful with the centre, so he said to the guy, let's sort this out over the field. So as they were walking out, John stopped, turned around and said, tell you what, bring your mates with you as well. So they all went over the field. 10 minutes later, John walks in, walks up the counter, gets a cup of tea, sits down. 5 minutes later, they all walk in with like split lips, split eyes. And he'd basically taken out the whole lot of them and just walked back in as if nothing had happened and had a cup of tea.
I used to see you in Rochester, running amok.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that was the other, what was that called?
You know, but you used to go up the high street and he comes like red blood.
Yeah, it comes in, quick run. Karen Ann's garden, and this was a project that when I was working here for 2 years volunteering, that I took hold of, and it was a wasteland, lots of mud, banks and grass everywhere, and we dug out loads, and we got over 10 tonne of stones that we wheelbarrowed through here, and we made it into what it looks like today, a massive bird aviary, and it's just a garden of reflecting, so people in Karen Ann's can come out and just sit here in the summer and just reflect on their life and where they're at, and then get the right guidance from the team, the leadership team of Karen Ann.
So when I actually approached the church, and God's love hit my heart and changed, rocked my life, rocked my world completely for the good, you know, and that's what I detected, his love. So I didn't know what was happening, so I went up to the front. I said to the leaders, I said, what's going on here? He said, right, you're encountering the living God. It's a decision from your heart, and You just got to call out to God, and that's what I've done. That's where the Bible says in Romans 10 verse 9 and 10, it says confess with your lips, to believe with your heart that God raised Jesus from the dead and you would be saved. This is where I fell to my knees in repentance, called out to God. His love settled in my heart. The Bible says that in Romans 5 verse 1 and 2, it says that we're justified through faith in Jesus Christ, and we can make peace with God and stand right with the living God. So that's what I did. And then this is when the lights come on. This is when I started to see clear. This is where I got given a new heart. This is where I started to walk in the abundant lifestyle of Jesus Christ. So then at that point, things started to get good. I started to pray for a wife. And as I was praying for a wife, God honoured that, and God had somebody in mind for me, and her name's RED Dayne. I've been with her since the 6th of the 6th, 2015. That's when we got married. And I just want to quickly tell you a little story. Years ago, I was doing a custodial sentence on the Isle of Wight prison. And we worked out, me and my wife, at exact the same time. She was a young girl and she was praying, because she's been brought up in a Christian family. She was praying, and God said to her that your future husband is in trouble now. I want you to start to pray. He's in some sort of trouble. And God spoke to her, and we later discussed this when we got married, and worked out that the time was exactly the same time as when I was in the Isle of Wight prison. And I was basically on my knees crying, saying, God, I'm messed up. If you're real, I need help. I'm confused. And I had a vision of this ring on my finger. I had a vision of this ring on my finger and a posh girl, me being married to a posh girl.
What's it? Dairy allergy.
When I first met John, and I started seeing him, I think people were a little bit like, oh gosh, what's going on here? Because we are polar opposites. People meet John, and how can I describe it? He's a little bit rough and ready, bless him. And they meet me, and they perceive me as quite posh or prim and proper. For me and John, it is like we come from two different worlds, but at the same time, I know that I was made for him. He was made for me. We were made for each other. We were destined to be together. And that's a really beautiful thing. I love him so completely, and I'm fierce in my love for him. He's had a chaotic life, and for me, I feel like I need to protect him in a lot of ways, and that has been my role as he has moved forward in his walk with the Lord, and just developing as a man, because he spent his whole life running from reality, really.
Been brought up in a posh family, and she's lovely. I love her with all of my heart. She's everything to me, apart from God. God's number one. And Rowena and my little boy, they mean the world to me. I would die for them. They're everything to my life. And so my wife is incredible to me. So she's come in, her pure soul, she's not been exposed to darkness. She's stayed into a place where she's walked with the living God and not been corrupted. So her pure soul being next to my corrupted soul, which has been damaged, has brought healing to my soul. And the Holy Spirit, Jesus and the Father, has really incorporated all this together and really brought me into an amazing place with my faith with God. And it's alive and active. God's so real to me. I hear him on a day-to-day basis. He speaks to me. You only got to pick the Bible up and read and ask the Holy Spirit to start to help you, and you'll start to see the purpose for your life, which was set in heaven. Now, my purpose from God for my life was already set before the foundations of this world. and I'm just walking it out, and the Holy Spirit is navigating that purpose for me, and I'm just in submission of that and finding more of God's goodness and He.
What spirit do you want?
When Rowena first come to the church, obviously a young pretty girl, he was instantly smitten with her, started chatting to her, and after a couple of days chatting with her, he just come in, he went, "That's my future wife." And we all laughed because she's very, very well spoken, you know, totally different, you know, from a high class family. John's obviously like an ex-heroin addict prisoner, and we all just laughed at her. Never in a million years.
How much would you say John's changed now?
Oh, he's not even the same person now. I was also here when he walked out of the kitchen, and when you volunteer, everyone takes the mickey out of you if you're a client and you start volunteering. He walked out the kitchen and all his drug addict friends were all sitting on a table, and they're all like, "Oh, what you doing, you mug?" And he just walked up and said, "You can take the mick, but I've had enough and I'm changing my life." And he has. They're still sitting in the centre. He's doing what he's doing. He's married, got a job, got a little boy. He's the head of the evangelist team. He's not even the same person, even to talk to. It's not the same.
Ready? Well, let's go on the bike. Ready? Let's go on the bike. Let's go on the bike. Let's go on the bike.
Drugs and crime, what, you know, what is that? That's a half life. It's not a real life. You push a lot of your own emotions, who you really are aside, just to survive. And it has been my pleasure and my joy to walk with John through his journey of actually discovering who he is in Christ, who he is as a man, who he is as a father, who he is as a husband. And you know, John, he never ceases to amaze me. His ability to change, his humility, because it takes a lot of humility to actually say, do you know what, I'm wrong in this area. That's not right. That's an old way of thinking. That's a red thing to do, you know, as we say, because you know he was known as Red, and you know I call him John now. Everybody calls him John now because actually he's walking in a new life, and you know it's not always easy. Hasn't always been a fairy tale because you know it comes with a lot of baggage, and it has presented a lot of difficult situations at times because you know, his way of responding to things is different to somebody maybe who was brought up in a conventional family, you know, been to school, been through education. You learn to handle situations in a certain way when you've been in prison, when you've been out on the streets fighting to survive. You handle things very differently.
Where I'm at today, so I'm working cook, working on part of Raw Talent, and the other part is working in the kitchen. Raw Talent is ready and working, so people's got barriers to employment, people who's been in prison, got mental health, addicted to drugs, been homeless. Yeah, so how I found Cook was I was volunteering in Care and Hands for 2 years, and Cook send food to Care and Hands, and that's their charity, and they said anybody comes through Care and Hands successfully, we give them a job, and I was the first person to come through successfully.
Yeah, so the first time I came to Cook, the very first time I came to Cook, I went on a tour of the kitchen, and as part of the tour we saw this amazing video, and the video tracked two guys, Craig and Red, and it told the story of how this guy Red had come along for a job at Cook, and Craig recognised him, and there was a bit of uncertainty, and it turned out that previously John had ended up putting Red had ended up putting Craig in hospital in an altercation outside a pub. He'd been really badly hurt, and he was understandably nervous about working with this guy who'd come for an interview at Cook. So basically Mark, who is our COO, said to the two guys, I would like you to sit down in a room together. I'd like you to have a chat, you know. And Craig had the opportunity to say, look, it was really tough what you did. It really knocked my confidence. And John, Red as he was then, had the chance to say sorry. And the two guys had this amazing kind of reconciliation moment. And John was offered the job. Craig became his manager. And it was just this incredible and really powerful story that got me in the belly. And I wanted to work there. I just thought, I want to work at this place. And so I knew John before I even got to Cook. And then when I did, I kind of stalked them till they gave me a job. And then I came to Cook, and as part of my induction, I went on another tour of the kitchen. I saw John, he was working in the kitchen in all his gear. And I said, I recognise you. I saw you you're like that movie star. And he said, oh yeah, I've heard about you. I've heard about your role. I want to work with you. I want to help other people do what Cook has done for me. And I didn't forget it, and he didn't either. He kept on saying it. And just over the months, as I settled into my role, we chatted here and there. And eventually John started working for 2 days a week, helping other people like him come and join Cook, whilst 3 days a week still working in the kitchen. Yeah. Just a really, I think immediately we had a connection where we could both see in each other the complete commitment and passion for doing the same thing, and we both wanted the same thing. So I was like, he said, I want to work with you, and I said, I want to work with you. Brilliant, let's do it.
And the Bible's clear as well in James 1 verse 21 that we're to humble ourselves unto the implanted word of God.
Because he has changed so much from when I first met him, and he continues to change, and that is a really beautiful thing, to see him settle into who he really is. You know, of course he is always himself, but I think the true man inside is emerging, and do you know what? I just fall more and more in love with him as the years go by, and I think it has brought a lot of healing to him to be in a family home. You know, he comes home to me, and I am like an anchor. I am like a steady I am that steady thing in his life, that constant, where he's had a life of chaos. You know, now he's living a more peaceful life, and we sit down, we have dinner together, we do things as a family. You know, I think that has brought a lot of healing to his life, and you know, it's just amazing to be a part of that. One of the things that I remembered a couple of years ago, I think John and I were already married. I remembered I went out into the garden. I was probably about 13, at home with my parents. I went out into the garden, and I don't know, I just had this feeling to pray for the man I was going to marry, and I just knew in my heart that there was something wrong, that he was in trouble, he was in some kind of trouble. I didn't understand really, I just knew in my heart. I just had this feeling, and I began to pray for him. Whatever he was going through, that God would protect him, that he would lead him out of that situation. And when I spoke to John about it, we figured out that actually it was at the same time that he was in prison in a really difficult situation.
And we worked out, me and my wife, at exact the same time. She was a young girl and she was praying, because she's been brought up in a Christian family. She was praying, and God said to her that your future husband is in trouble now. I want you to start to pray. And God spoke to her, and we later discussed this when we got married, and worked out that the time was exactly the same time as when I was in the Isle of Wight prison, and I was basically on my knees crying, saying, God, I'm messed up. If you're real, I need help. I'm confused.
You know, that's just one of the many things that God has shown us over the years, and in our relationship, that he's actually, you know, he's brought us together in his perfect timing. You know, and it blows my mind, you know, to think that we were two worlds apart, and yet God was using me even at that age and even at that time in my life to pray for him.
We go to various places to recruit people for our Raw Talent programme. So recruit people to Cook with barriers to employment. And so we often go to prisons or charities or job centres. And so yeah, we've been together with John, we've been to some of the very smartest places in London, like we've been in the Shard, we've been to the Houses of Parliament, the House of Lords, all sorts of places talking about what we do. We've also been to some of the local prisons where John's done loads of time. And I remember the first time we went in, he said, just to warn you, they might not let me in. And I said, don't worry about that, we've got that sorted. We've got security covered. And we were standing in the foyer bit of the prison, the bit where it's like the gate where you get all security done. And he said, and by the way, if they do let me in, they might not let me out. I said, don't worry about that either. I asked him how he was feeling. He said, yeah, I'm feeling a bit nervous, to be honest. He hadn't ever been back in. And it was really powerful and amazing what he did, really. What a generous thing to go back to that place which he had left and moved on from. And we walked in and people recognised him. The guys in the prison and the officers couldn't believe what they saw, really, because he was visually so different. He'd lost a lot of weight, he cleaned out, he was like, people say who knew him before, lots of people who work here knew him before, and they're like, you wouldn't recognise him. And so the one guy came up to him in this prison, we were doing a recruitment event, and one guy came up, literally sort of put his arms around him and started to cry when he saw the change in John. And then the officers saw that, and they went to get the governor, saying, like, you need to see this, you need to see this. This does happen sometimes. There is some hope. So it was very powerful. They were quite moved, the officers, actually. So yeah, when we go into prisons, when we go to anywhere, we both talk, I talk, John talks, everyone remembers John. He's just a really passionate and powerful speaker, because he's been there and done that, and he knows the depth to which some people have gone, and he knows how it's possible to get out of it.
So today my heart is for people who's had crushed lifestyles, who hasn't had who hasn't been dealt a fair hand. So I want to help them be a good blackjack player. I want to help them, no matter what hand you've been dealt, you can play it well, and you can build it up to an amazing hand. And people who's had crazy crushed lifestyles, whether it's lack of parents, whether it's the peer pressure, these people, even young children, they're just about to make wrong decisions, just about to start to pick up that first drug, take that first drug. I really want to be impactful and insightful to them. I've been going into prisons doing recovery talks, and they listen to me, their ear is open to me, because they can't say that you haven't walked in my footsteps, because they're walking in my footprints.
Still am a bit in awe of John, because he helped me with my addiction, and if it wasn't for John, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now.
Just staying focused on walking out of the Lord and keeping my eyes fixed on Christ, and that's the only way that I know what to do now. And God is leading me into a place of abundance, where I'm seeing who I originally am, how God has created me, and it's just starting to manifest in my life. But it has to be a personal relationship.
Where do I see him going? I see him, definitely doing my job. He'll do a better job than I will, and so on. He's got a big heart for evangelism. He's got a big heart for loving people. He will love people. He will leave a trail of love.
If God can change a man like John, who has been through a life of crime and of drugs, who's faced violence, who's been, people have tried to kill him. If God can change that man and make him into a family man, a respectable man, then God can do that in anybody's life. He really can.